I would say, the fourth quarter of 2007, and they became more detailed and more broader in the discussion during the course of 2008. Our discussions around these topics probably, we didn't touch on these topics at the level that we did after around about September 2008. Our conversations on these topics dropped off. But certainly in the period from late third quarter of 2007 through to third quarter of 2008, we had a lot of conversations about those topics.
Did Craig Wright show you something in writing about his ideas?
Yes, he did. He came to me one day, walked into my office and gave me a copy of a white paper. And I didn't read the white paper at the time. I left it on my desk and I read it later. But I came to identify that as the white paper that was published or released by Satoshi Nakamoto. That particular paper that he gave me, to the best of my recollection, did not have a name on it. It certainly didn't have the name Satoshi Nakamoto on it. The first time I encountered the...
Sorry to interrupt you, but if it had the name Satoshi Nakamoto on it, how would you have reacted then?
Well, I would have immediately identified that it was a name that I hadn't heard before and asked questions about it.
Please continue.
So yeah, he gave me a copy of that paper. Subsequently, when we met and discussed the white paper years in advance, he and I had a discussion about which version of the white paper that was, and he told me that it was the second last iteration of the white paper before it was released.
Okay, let's go a bit more carefully through this. When did he come to your office presenting what you say is the white paper? When was that?
I'm going to say most likely in August 2008.
Did you read all of it?
I read the front page, I can recall, several times in detail. I read all the section headings in the white paper. I speed read the content in each of the section headings, and I've got to say there was nothing there that I hadn't already discussed in some way, shape or form with Craig over the previous year or so. People have asked me whether I had that magical moment when I read this, and no, I didn't. It was a reiteration of the conversations that we'd had for as I say, a year.
Yeah, I will go a bit further than to ask about any magical moments. Did you, as a starting point, did you understand it and take an interest in it?
Yes, I understood it. Yes, I took an interest in it. I took an interest in it as an invention. I didn't take an interest in it in terms of me wanting to be involved in the project. And the reason for that was that I worked in an industry where we'd seen quite a number of these types of concepts, inventions introduced, and none of them up until then had been successful.
When was the next time, after having received it, that you discussed the paper with Craig Wright? Did you have more than one meeting? Did
Yes.
you discuss this in the first meeting or
No,
or later?
We didn't hold a lengthy discussion about the paper in the first meeting. The next time I saw Craig was probably about a month later, because we did meet on a monthly basis regularly. And it was at that time he inquired about the paper. He saw the paper laying on my desk, picked it up and said to me, "So you've read the paper?" And I said, "Yes, I have, but Craig, I've got no interest in this."
Okay. How did he react to that?
Craig was used to me saying I've got no interest in certain topics and concepts, so he had no problems with that. It was just the relationship that we had when we discussed things.
Did he at any point after this propose to you that Centerbet should get involved in the further development of these concepts?
He actually asked me several times during the course of 2008 whether the company would be open to having an involvement in the development of these concepts, and I said absolutely not, or no, for a number of reasons. I mean, we were an organisation going through very serious discussions as a public company to be acquired by a number of suitors around the world. I had a very important role, and I was incredibly busy executing my responsibilities under that role. So getting involved in a project with Craig at any level where I felt that it wasn't likely to amount to anything serious was not something that I wanted to entertain.
Okay, just to see if we can have that precise. The second meeting, you said that was 1 month after. Does that mean that this was we are still in the autumn of 2008?
Oh, we're in 2008, yes.
Turning then to 2009.
Yes.
What level of contact did you have with him then? Then he had left BDO?
He had left BDO. He was an active member of our security committee as an independent advisor. So he was he was in our office for all of our meetings. He used to come down from his farm up on the north coast of New South Wales. One of those meetings was the day that he offered me Bitcoin when he walked into my office.
What happened?
Walked in normally, sat down and said, "Mate, give me $500." And in my interpretation of that was that he needed some money. And I said to him, "Mate, I'm happy to give you 1,000, 2,000, 1,500, whatever you need, because you know, you're a consultant here. We're paying you, and I trust you. I know you." And he said, "No, I'm not short of money. Just give me $500. I'll give you 50,000 Bitcoin." And I looked at him and I said, "Bitcoin?" And he went, "Yeah, you remember Bitcoin?" I said, "Yes, I remember Bitcoin. And as you know, Craig, I'm not interested in this. If you want some money, I'm happy to advance you some money, but I'm not interested in Bitcoin."
Okay, so you actually rejected his kind offer.
I rejected his kind offer of $0.01 each for the Bitcoin, and I never regretted it, to be honest.
Yeah, but because that was my next question, and I'm probably not the first person who have asked you this. In hindsight, should you have accepted that offer?
Should I? Look, the reality is I'd spoken to Craig for, at that stage, the best part of 2 years about these concepts and what was Bitcoin. And I didn't respect it. I didn't take the time, to be honest, because of all the pressures that I was under, to dig deeper than the electronic cash element. Had I done so and understood the underlying blockchain concepts and technologies better, I may have had a different view, but I didn't. And if I had taken those coins, they would have come with private keys. I've moved house multiple times. I've moved internationally between countries. I didn't respect it. I probably would have lost, thrown away, or whatever, those private keys, and we'd be having a different conversation today.
Okay, so when did your cooperation within the context of Centerbet
we eventually sold the company to what was acquired by a UK listed entity. And after the day of change of control, I resigned and I moved to take up a position in the UK.
Okay, for a completely different...
A completely different company, yeah.
Okay. Did you maintain contact with Dr. Wright?
No, I didn't.
Which year was this?
2011. 2011, I moved to the UK. 2010, we concluded negotiations on the sale of the business.
When was the next time that you got in touch with Craig Wright?
I heard Craig Wright's name several times in the years 2011 to 2014, and that was because when I moved overseas, I also recruited or took with me a senior guy that worked for me in Australia, as you often do. And he maintained communication with Craig on a number of technical issues and came to me a few times and asked for my approval or my acknowledgement that he was going to engage with Craig to perform some forensic and audit work for the company that we were then working with. So I knew that Craig was engaging with my staff, but I didn't have any direct contact with him until 2014 when he called me on my cell phone in the Philippines. At that stage, I'd moved to the Philippines in 2012, I think, late 2011. And it was a surprise. It came up as an unidentified number. I picked the phone up and it was Craig's voice.
Tell us about that conversation, very briefly.
He told me that he had heard that I was going to be in Australia for New Year's Eve, and that if there was a chance he'd like to meet with me and have a chat.
Yeah.
I asked him where he got my number from, and he told me that it came from our, the guy that had moved from Australia to the UK and was now working in London. And I said to him, I'll come back to you. So we actually ended up meeting on the 2nd of January 2015 in the lobby of my hotel in North Sydney. And at that time it was Craig, and he brought his wife with him. Although
okay, so we have passed New Year between 2014, 2015.
Correct.
Yeah, and 2nd of January. Had you spent New Year's holiday in Australia then?
Yes, I had. I'd visited family, and I had my partner, who is now my wife, with me. And we stayed in a hotel in North Sydney. It was the first time that I've ever seen Sydney fireworks for New Year's Eve live.
And you met with Dr. Wright?
I met with Dr. Wright at about 11:30 on the 2nd of January.
Yeah. And how did that meeting go?
It was an interesting meeting. I'd say it probably lasted about an hour and a half. We talked about people. We talked about our past. We didn't get into a lot of detail about Bitcoin at all, although Craig's wife brought Bitcoin up once or twice in the conversation, but I didn't pick up on it. I just passed it off. I had no interest in picking up on it.
Did you, at that time, and we are now in the very start of 2015, did you relate the concept of Bitcoin to the discussions that you had with Craig Wright at an earlier stage?
Absolutely. I mean, the word Bitcoin was something I was familiar with. The word Bitcoin appeared on the draft of the white paper that I saw in 2008. The word Bitcoin came up in the subsequent discussion about the white paper with Craig. It also came up about the 50,000 coins. So I was very familiar with the concept of Bitcoin, or the name Bitcoin. And I will say one more thing. When I was in London, one weekend I was channel surfing, and I came across on one of the cable channels a documentary that was being run about Bitcoin. It was a group of people in what looked like a camping ground or a forest with mobile phones moving transactions between each other. And I stopped at that point and I went, holy shit, this is Bitcoin, what we were talking about back then. I thought